Hello, Kelly. It's such an honor to have you as a guest on the Paleo Gardening Expert Interview segment. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Kelly is a grain-free cookbook author, blogger, and creator of her website, The Nourishing Home. She recently published the Everyday Grain-Free Cookbook. So, Kelly, how would you explain all that you do to anyone unfamiliar with your work?
I would let you know that my website is dedicated to helping individuals and families who want to live a healthy, whole food lifestyle. We provide recipes for busy families that are family-friendly, recipes that the whole family can enjoy, whether they're gluten-free and grain-free or not. And also, I love providing meal plans. I provide weekly meal plans to my subscribers to make it easy to get dinner on the table in a snap. They come with shopping lists and prep-ahead tasks. And, we just do a lot on the website to make it easier and more time-efficient for people to eat healthier.
That's great. Having help with meal planning is such a bonus.
I agree. I think it's something that can just really make eating healthier so much easier and more affordable.
So everyone has a unique story of how they regain their health in the paleo world. Could you tell me about your journey to health?
Sure. My journey began back in 2007. I was having some really unusual symptoms and just problems with my health. And so my doctors were having a really hard time figuring out what was wrong with me. And finally they concluded that I was having some autoimmune-related issues. And so I was given a handful of prescriptions and told, go take these prescriptions and hopefully they'll work for you. And, honestly, that was a turning point in my life because I thought, this is crazy. I don't want to take a handful of prescriptions, not really knowing whether they're going to work for me or not. And really, why am I having all these problems? I felt that my body was turning against me, which is really what autoimmunity is. It's your body, turning against itself. And so I thought, what is the root cause of this and why is this happening? And so I had a little understanding of nutrition at that time, not nearly as, obviously what I have now. But I thought, maybe there's some dietary issues here that I can, make some changes to the way that I eat, and maybe that will help me. And so I started looking into that, and really how I started on my journey was through the Weston A. Price Foundation's perspective of eating a whole food-based diet and getting rid of processed foods and kind of going back to more of that traditionally prepared foods. And so that was really exciting to me because as I moved in that direction, I started to see some positive impact in my health. Unfortunately, I kind of plateaued and I was starting to have some other issues. And thankfully, we came to realize that the main issue for me is gluten. I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And so obviously not just changing to a whole food diet was going to be enough for me. I also needed to remove the gluten. And so once I started removing gluten from my diet, of course, my health really radically transformed from that point on. But I noticed as I made great progress in the beginning that all of a sudden I kind of plateaued and I was having recurrences and problems, some of the similar problems that I was having prior. And that's when I discovered the grain-free diet. And actually, I was first introduced to the grain-free diet through the specific carbohydrate diet. And so that was really eye-opening for me. And I thought, maybe there's something to getting rid of these grains. And so I did. And again, I started to see myself making even more progress than I had ever made before. And so that was really a big turning point for me to where I ended up changing the direction of my blog, which had obviously started out, because documenting my journey, started out with more of that whole food Weston A. Price approach and really moved over to becoming a gluten-free, grain-free website and a resource to people who are following that lifestyle. Baked goods that my family actually likes, even though they're not gluten-free, was something that was just so important for me and I think has really resonated with so many people out there that are struggling with the same thing. So although my family members follow a whole food or a real food-based diet, they're not grain-free. And so that continually challenges me to be able to create recipes that really everybody can enjoy, whether they are grain-free or not. So what ends up happening is my family eats a lot of meals that are grain-free unintentionally because I'm grain-free.
I found that happened in my house, too. When I switched my diet, they all just came along with me. I didn't think they would eat greens, and we added greens, and now it's like there's hardly any left for me when I go through the line to get any. And I will still make them some desserts once in a while, but I've noticed that they don't really care anymore. But it did take some time. So, like, our norm changed. Does that make sense? Like, what was normal has changed to a different normal now?
Yes, and I think you hit on something that's so important is it takes time. And, you know, it's those slow, small, forward steps that end up where you look back and you go, wow, look how far we've come. And it's much easier to get your family on board with eating healthier if you do take slow, small steps forward than trying to radically transform their diet all in like, you know, a 2-week, 2-month period of time. Now, of course, sometimes there's situations that dictate that, like, for instance, if you have a child who's diagnosed with celiac, immediately all gluten has to be removed from their diet. But for most of us, you know, this can be a slower baby step transition. And like you said, if food tastes good, your family is not going to care what's in it or what's not in it. They just want the food to taste good. And so that's my journey.
Nice, yeah. I also have dealt with the autoimmune side, and, you know, gluten-free was great, but grain-free, even better. It made a huge difference. Yeah, like we switched from potatoes to sweet potatoes, and I just transitioned them, and now they don't even care if they get potatoes. They just eat the sweet potatoes, and they're happy. I'd never really eaten them before I went paleo because we always just had potatoes. And they're wonderful, delicious things. Yep. How has your journey to health affected the way you help others?
I think a lot of real food, whole food bloggers start blogging because of their own journey and wanting to help others, and that was certainly the case for me. I had such a tremendous health transformation from changing over to a whole food, gluten-free, grain-free diet that I really just wanted to tell the world. In fact, I had several doctors along the way tell me, oh, diet really isn't going to make that much of a difference. And so I just really wanted to encourage and inspire people that diet does make a difference. It makes a difference whether you have a chronic illness or whether you're just trying to maintain and support a healthy lifestyle. And so just being able to share that with others and give them hope and inspire them was something that was really important to me.
I agree. Man, if you don't have your diet straightened out, nothing else is going to help.
It's true. I mean, we wouldn't put the wrong fuel into our cars. You know, cars are designed to run on gasoline, and that's what you put in your car if you want it to run correctly. And so it just really kind of confounds me when you know, people, especially doctors, would say it doesn't matter what you eat. You know, our bodies were designed to eat real whole food, and when we're not doing that, I really, you know, don't think we should be surprised that our bodies aren't functioning well.
That is such a true statement. Oh, my gosh. So in my health journey, the Whole30 approach from It Starts With Food played a huge role in getting my family back to health. So how has it affected your journey?
Well, I tell you, the Whole30 is absolutely one of my favorite programs. And I'll tell you why. It's just so straightforward and practical, and it basically is a great way to just transition right on over to a whole food-based diet. And what I really like most about it is it's so personal. And what I mean by that is, yes, it's an elimination diet. It's a very healthy elimination diet that takes out a lot of foods right up front, but then you can slowly add back each food into your diet. And what it does is it empowers you to see which foods may be problematic for you. In other words, there may be certain foods that are trigger foods for you that are sabotaging your health, and you wouldn't even really notice it or realize it until you take them out for a period of time and then reintroduce them back into your diet. And so Whole30 is really one of the only diets that I talk about and name on my site, and I've led, four Whole30 programs on my blog to date, and in fact, we're doing one right now. And people are totally welcome to come onto my site anytime and sign up for the Whole30. I have a series of emails that come out with free meal plans that are Whole30 compliant. And so I just really love to provide as much resources and recipes to help people take the Whole30 challenge if that's something that they're interested in doing.
Yeah, I love that program. Like I said, it's so straightforward. My favorite part is you need to eat your vegetables. If you don't like it, get over it. You're an adult. Yes, you go.
Yeah, that's so true. And I also really like that you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think the most empowering thing about the Whole30 isn't necessarily just the learning to eat healthier, but it's learning that you can eat healthier, meaning you do have control over your cravings. You do have control over what you put in your mouth. There's a lot to the psychological factor of eating healthy, and Whole30, I think, does a great job of addressing that. And so that's another aspect of the program that I think is so important, is changing our relationship with food.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned a real food diet many times on your blog. So how does this diet differ from the paleo diet?
Well, the reason I talk about a real food diet is because it's more all-encompassing. A paleo diet is very specific in that it's grain-free, dairy-free, legume-free, but a real food diet is really talking about eating real whole foods. And so I don't particularly preach one diet over another, although my site is a gluten-free site, and predominantly I'd say 95% of my recipes are grain-free as well and dairy-free. But what I'm really doing is trying to help people move over to eating whole foods instead of processed foods. That's how my journey began. I began with eating whole foods and moving over to a whole food-based diet. And then slowly through that, I discovered that being grain-free, gluten-free, and grain-free, and for the most part dairy-free, has really done wonders to really help me get a lot of my autoimmune-related issues under control. And so when I talk about real foods, I'm talking about eating whole, nourishing foods and moving away from processed foods.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We should all check what we're doing. One of my favorite things is, try to eat foods without barcodes.
That's great. I love that. I would imagine that with you having the garden, that you really are so in tune with real food, where it comes from, and I think that we've lost that in our society. We don't really know where our food's coming from, and I think that's just so important.
Yep, I want to bring the food home to the backyard. That's my passion, because I know people can do this. It's so easy. They just have to get the education.
Absolutely.
Like, we're going to grow a garden. Yeah. So, on paleo gardening, we're passionate about teaching skills that increase the affordability of the high-quality foods. So do you have any suggestions for making the whole food diet more affordable?
Yes. In fact, that's a common question that I receive on the blog is, how can I manage my budget and still eat a whole food, based diet. And so I think there's a few things. First is I think you got to get a handle on what your current budget is. I think a lot of people spend more money than they realize eating out, and so that they think that, oh yeah, my grocery budget's going up so much eating whole foods. But if you're eating at home, it's always less expensive. Even if you're eating organics or more whole-based foods, it's still less expensive than going out to eat. And so getting a good look at your current budget and seeing what you have to work with is a great first step. Secondarily, meal planning, because a lot of times if we're not meal planning, we're wasting foods. We're going to the store, we're buying a bunch of things maybe that we normally buy each week. And, if we don't have a plan to use those foods, often what happens is they kind of sit in the fridge and then we realize, oh gosh, that, cantaloupe that we bought on sale, it looks like a chia pet, now we have to throw it away. And, every time we throw away food, we're throwing away money. And so that's one thing that I spend a lot of time on my blog is teaching people meal planning and providing free meal plans, is because it is such a great way to save money and save time by planning out what you're going to eat. And then my third is, really taking a look at food sources. You don't have to buy your food at the grocery store. Ta-da! I think, a lot of people think, oh, I'm limited to what, is available at my grocery store. But, you can jump on Amazon and join Amazon Prime and get free shipping and find a lot of your basic bulk items on Amazon, especially if you live in an area where maybe whole food things like coconut oil and stuff like that isn't readily available. Amazon's happy to deliver it to you. And then, of course, local farmers. There's farmers markets in just about every area, and finding out, who the local farmers are in your area, see if they have CSA boxes, the boxes that you can buy where whatever's in season, they deliver it to you, or you can pick them up at a designated location. And the produce tends to be a lot less expensive than buying it at the grocery store. And, of course, it's fresher because it's coming right from the farm straight to you. Those are just a few ways, that I recommend to people taking a look at getting their budget under control. And those are definitely tips that I use as well.
So the Grain-Free Baking Cookbook is chock full of beautiful and delicious recipes. So what is your process for creating new recipes?
I love that question. I was really excited when I saw that you were going to ask me that because I think a lot of people think that you have to pull ideas out of thin air, and, you don't. And so my inspiration for writing that cookbook came from the things that I grew up eating that I really missed and I wanted back in my diet. Now, that's not to say that, we eat something from the Everyday Grain-Free Baking Cookbook every day, but, when we want, a pie or a cake or a cookie or a muffin, I wanted to have something that tasted as close to what I remember, that food item tasting like, but it being grain-free. And so that was the inspiration. That was where I got my ideas for the cookbook. So I just sat down and I started thinking about what are all of the things that most people in general, eat as far as baked goods go and would miss and would really love to have back in their diet. And that's kind of that was the starting point for what became the Everyday Grain-Free Baking Cookbook. And the reason I called it Everyday Grain-Free Baking isn't, again, because grain-free baking should be a part of what you eat every day. It should, be a small part. Your plate should be filled with, produce and healthy fats and, good meats, grass-fed meats, and all of that good stuff. But when you do want a baked good, you want it to taste like something that you would have been used to having every day, in your prior lifetime. You don't want it to taste like kind of this flavorless cardboard, weird texture thing. And so that was my heart in creating the book, is that it could taste as normal as possible.
Nice. I appreciate that. Because I do. I have cravings every now and again, and it's like, oh, here we go, something that'll taste good.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
So what was the difficulty that you overcame while writing this cookbook?
Well, let's see. The difficulty in writing a cookbook is, of course, the deadlines of, getting everything, keeping everything moving along. And so, I think for me, writing the cookbook, it was such a huge labor of love, and I'm such a perfectionist. And I just really wanted every recipe to be perfect. And so, it ended up for me going back to my publisher and asking for an extension on the deadline because I really did not want to publish a single recipe in that book unless I felt it was, absolutely perfect and something that I would be proud to serve and knew that people would enjoy. And so I think that was the biggest difficulty is just perfecting each recipe to where it was easy to make, it consistently came out the same every single time, and met my very, stringent quality standards in addition to my best critics, which of course are my family, because they're not grain-free. And if I got the thumbs up and it didn't taste weird, then I knew I was on the right track. I also have to say that I had an incredible resource of neighbors. We're all very close-knit in my neighborhood. And, bless their hearts, they ate so many cakes, muffins, cookies, pies. I think everybody was, about done by the time I was finished with that cookbook. And, again, none of them were grain-free. So they were giving me their honest feedback each step of the way. And so it was a process, but I tell you, it was probably one of the best experiences of my life doing that.
Nice. I remember, we've been gluten-free for 20 years, and I'll make something, and my goal is to trick the grain eaters. Like if we have the family over, I'm like, I wonder if they'll like it and go back for seconds. And it works pretty good.
Yeah.
But, I haven't eaten wheat in 20 years, so I don't know what it tastes like. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been good. It's been really good.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was definitely, my goal, too, is that for people to be able to serve this, and people to enjoy it, and for people to say, wow, this is gluten-free and grain-free, that was really what I was working towards.
So what tips do you give listeners for grain-free baking?
My best tips would actually be, if you're getting started with grain-free baking, to find grain-free recipes, baking recipes that you enjoy, and really follow the recipes to a T. It's interesting because if you start making recipes and following them, you will start to actually learn so much more from following good recipes. And you can take a good recipe and start tweaking it. That is far more easy and manageable than just trying to recreate recipes. You can certainly take old family recipes and start to try to recreate them. But if you can find similar recipes that have already been, vetted out for you, and then you can tweak them from there to further get them to that taste profile that you're looking for, I think that's the easiest, really the easiest way to learn to grain-free bake. My cookbook, again, is specifically formulated with basic recipes, just the things that we kind of all grew up eating, and not with the intention that you just make those recipes over and over, but for them to be a foundation for you to kind of take them and make them your own. So you can take some of those basic cakes and muffins and cookie recipes, and you can make alternate versions, anything that you have in mind, but at least it gives you a firm foundation of something that's going to be successful, because there's nothing more frustrating than you buy all these expensive ingredients, and grain-free ingredients are expensive. Almond flour is not cheap. Coconut flour is not cheap. And, you put this together, you spend time, you bake it, and then, it turns out to just not be edible. and we've all been there, and it's really frustrating. So my best tips is to follow good recipes, proven recipes, and then take those as sort of your building block to making recipes your own by tweaking them and adjusting them and adding different variables, different ingredients to make them your own.
Nice. That's a really good idea. I'm a recipe tweaker myself. But we have elevation, and so we have to adjust. We're at 5,600 feet. So we have to adjust everything for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
In your cookbook, you cook at 315 degrees. What is that all about?
I know, isn't it kooky? I found that it's like, I'm kind of like, why do we have to pick 325, 350, 375? What if 300 is too low and 325 is burning the bottom of my, cookies or whatever?
Yeah.
Why can't I just do 310, which is in between? So that I said, forget it. I'm sorry, everybody can kind of figure out 310, even if they have a dial, oven. So I tried it at 310 or 315 or whatever, and it was perfect, like every single time. So I'm like, I'm putting 315 in there. And I've had people say to me, it's so funny because it's kind of like this is this story. If it works, it works, but it's kind of like this story. This woman bought a pot roast, and she cut it in half, and she put it in 2 pans, and she stuck it in the oven. And her daughter said, Mom, why do you always cut the pot roast in half and put it in 2 pans and put it in the oven? And she said, I don't know. My mom always did it that way. And so she asked her mom, why did you always cut the pot roast in half and put it in 2 pans? And her mom said, well, because I didn't have a pan big enough to fit the entire pot roast. And it's like, yeah, okay. It's like sometimes we just do stuff because that's the way that we've been told to do it. And I thought, why can't I have a baking temperature of 310 or 315 if it works, So anyways, it's funny that you asked me that because I've had a lot of people, on the blog too say, is that a typo? Did you mean 325? And I'm like, no, it's not a typo. But, for you at altitude too, it could be, I know altitude's such a different, bear entirely. So, you may have to make it 325. I mean, I don't know.
I noticed when we went gluten-free, I had to back off about 10, 15 degrees, in anything I was cooking.
Yeah.
And it really was the magic number, just to back that off a little bit.
Yeah, because, and even with, even if you're not at altitude, with grain-free flours, especially nut flour, is so delicate that in order to get the middle done, without the bottom burning, you do have to go lower temperatures and cook longer. But then there's like this fine window of how long you can cook too, because even the length of time will over brown. So it's definitely a whole different beast, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. But I thought that was funny. Everything was 315. I'm like, this is hilarious. But I did it.
Yeah. Well, now you know the secret behind it, and so there was a method to my madness.
That's great. Good. Your work has helped so many, and there are many of us who would like to see you continue. How can anyone listening stay involved with your work?
Well, I think the best way to stay involved is to be a subscriber of The Nourishing Home. If you subscribe to my website, I send 1 email a week, so you're not flooded with emails. I send a newsletter each week, and it's basically a recap of what's been going on in the blog, new recipes, and, of course, it contains everybody's favorite, the weekly meal plan, which is free to subscribers, and it has the shopping list and the prep ahead tasks that help you make getting dinner on the table a lot easier. And so that's really all provided for free to my subscribers. So it's a great way to kind of stay in touch with what's going on, new recipes, meal plans, things like this podcast. I let my readers know, my subscribers know that, hey, I'm over at Paleo Gardening talking about grain-free living. And so I would love for, anyone who's interested in getting healthy recipes and meal plans to come join us. I love being able to communicate with my subscribers, and I also have a private Facebook page just for my subscribers where we have a lot of chatting going on and encouragement and support for one another.
That sounds wonderful. I'll probably jump on board.
Awesome. I would love to have you.
Yeah, that would be fun. I want to thank you for taking time to join me on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun.
For those of you listening, learn more about Kelly Smith and her new cookbook, Grain-Free Baking, by clicking the links in the description or by visiting thenourishinghome.com. It was a pleasure to have you as a guest in the Paleo Gardening Expert interview. I'd like you to have a wonderful day.
Thank you.